Coming from a background in computer science, I feel like I never had an issue with building a cool product. The building itself was not the problem. Now with all the tools that you mentioned before, it's even easier. Product market fit is the hardest part. And I think the biggest challenge is resisting the temptation of investing a lot of time and or money into an idea, into a product before having product market fit. I think that's a big challenge and that is underestimated a lot. You don't need to invest months of work and a lot of money in something that you haven't validated yet. And it's also challenging to know when you reach product market fit. If you start making some money, it doesn't mean that you reach product market fit.
Welcome to the Product Weekend podcast, where we dive into conversations that inspire and challenge the way we think about product management, leadership, and innovation. In every episode, we explore how to build high-performing teams, foster psychological safety, and lead with purpose. My name is João Moita, and today we have an awesome guest with us from whom you'll hear more in just a second. Before we jump in, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast platform. And if you enjoy what you hear, leave a review. It only takes a moment and helps us bring even more value to the product community. Let's get started. Sergiu, welcome to the Product Weekend podcast. It's so cool to have you here. How are you doing?
Great to be here. After listening to all the episodes, it's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. So this is a very special episode. It's actually the last one we're launching in this format, and in that direction, we are curious to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to us and let us know what you think of the podcast, how we could make it better. We have some ideas that we'll be exploring. But yeah, for now, let's enjoy this last format in this setting. So if you're a regular listener, you already know what I'm going to ask first. And that question is, what's a recent weekend that you really enjoyed?
I have a very clear one in mind. It's been a few weeks ago. I finally went away with my wife for 2 days for skiing. We left kids home with my mother, and it's the first time, I think, in more than a year, when we had some time, just the two of us. So my wife, skiing, and some après-ski parties. So I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, you got me jealous with the stories of the après-ski.
Well, we went as well together, so that's fine. You shouldn't be that jealous.
Yeah. But I think that's a tip for the parties. It's better the weekend. During the week, it's not that exciting from what I saw.
That's true.
But yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about your journey and a bit our journey together. Also a bit of the story of Product Weekend for people that don't know and are curious about how we got to build this. But we also talk about building products and building companies in 2025, how AI and all these new trends are impacting the way that people are building products. And we'll also talk about what's coming up for Product Weekend. Even though there are some things that we're still working on, we have very ambitious plans for this year, which we are very excited to share with you all, and looking forward to see them turn into reality and impacting many lives of product people and product enthusiasts. So let's start from the beginning and let's rewind a bit and go back to Product Weekend was even a thing. Where were you professionally and what were you thinking about back then?
So a short brief, career-wise, I started as a software engineer. I was a developer. Then towards the end of my studies, I co-founded a startup, which didn't survive the pandemic. I loved the startups world, but then I ended up in my dream job. It was my dream job back then. I worked in Amazon as a project manager, and it seemed like all the stars aligned, right? Dream company, dream job. I also moved to Italy, which was a great place for me to be. But then during COVID, I had a moment when I thought, what am I doing with my life? Something didn't feel right. And that's when Jungle Retreats was born. This was a very important milestone for me. So as a side hustle, I started organizing retreats for professionals that felt lost in life and that wanted to make a change career-wise. I started it together with my wife. It was right after becoming a dad, so maybe that also impacted a bit my decision. And it was the first time that I felt that I'm doing something meaningful. I was really happy, really satisfied with helping professionals discover what makes them happy and be there for them, supporting them in their career journey. And yeah, that was 3 years ago. Wow, it's been a while. And that was the moment I realized maybe corporate isn't the right place for me long term.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very interesting that we weren't talking that often back then, but it happened that we started Jungle Retreats and Product Weekend more or less at the same time and more or less from the same motivation, which was basically a pain that we had personally, and we didn't find an readily available solution to fix that pain. So we created something ourselves, and that's something that I think unites us in this journey. Yeah, you also mentioned the parenthood, but we'll dive a little bit in more detail in that in a second. But before that, I wanted to talk a bit about Product Weekend and share a bit with people how we decided to join forces. Essentially, what Product Weekend is today is a merger of what Product Weekend was and what Jungle Retreats was. And do you want to share a little bit on about how that merger happened?
Yes, I'm getting quite emotional when I remember it. It was a great period. It still is. So back then, Jungle Retreats was a type of event that was organized every couple of months in Italy and Portugal. We organized around 10 self-development retreats for professionals. We even did a B2B one, and I loved it. It was impactful for the participants, but honestly, it wasn't generating enough revenue for me to quit my corporate job. So I remember perfectly one day when you called me saying, Sergio, I need your advice. You're considering quitting your job and focusing entirely on Product Weekend. I was like, that's interesting. I wish I could do that. And you told me more about it, and I realized that this has a lot of potential. It's really scalable. So, yeah, I'm not going to share what I encouraged you to do, it's not relevant. But I remember that evening I had a discussion with my wife. I shared our chat with her, and she said, yeah, I think Product Weekend will go far. Hearing her say that, a person that is very critical, convinced me that, okay, this is great. Maybe we could do something together. And I think I called you some days after, and then you ended up coming to Italy like a month later or so. Do you want to cover that part?
Yeah.
How that trip went?
Yeah, I didn't know that part of that detail of that day. I didn't
I'm not sharing
remember exactly
everything with
that
you.
way, and I'm glad that Maru was happy with and like confident in Product Weekend from the early beginning. But yeah, so basically, also we back then when we met in the students organization in Best, we were together for a full year in the international management. And actually, I always joke that during that year, I saw you more often than I saw my mom.
Same.
And it was very cool working together, even though we had different areas of responsibilities. We met quite often. We were always working together and discussing things. And it always felt we would build something together one day. And then at this point, when I was starting Product Weekend, jumping full time, I was like, okay, let's explore, let's see what we could build together. And actually, the initial idea was not necessarily to join forces, but rather to create something, the two of us, and keep Product Weekend and Jungle Retreats as our personal things. And that's how we decided to have this personal retreat, just the two of us in the Alps. And it turned out that that idea that we had was not that suitable for that period of our lives and our experience and our strengths. So yeah, it became clear that Jungle Retreats had a lot of potential, but was lacking a clear target group. And Product Weekend, on the other hand, was delivering a lot of value to junior and mid-level people, but had no offer for more senior people. And we had these people coming to our events as speakers, and they were like, yeah, this is great, but it would be even better if there was something just for leaders where we could discuss more leadership topics and strategy and all these things. So yeah, that's when it clicked, and it was like, okay, we need to create something for leaders. It needs to be something more immersive, more intense. And that's how the Product Weekend Leaders Retreat was born. And that's something that I'm very proud of, and I think has a huge impact. Our participants all gave great feedback that it was a life-changing event, just like the jungle retreats were, but this time for product people and product leaders. So yeah, when that clicked, from then it was just operationalizing, figuring out the details on how we would make it happen, and then that's history. That's what ended up turning into what Product Weekend is today, and that if you're listening, you probably know.
And if I can add one more thing, because the question was the moment to realize that this is a scalable business. I remember when we were in the Alps and we talked about our personal goals, what we want from life, what we want from business. We were so aligned. Everything you shared, I was like, yeah, I feel exactly the same. And I think that's something very important. That's the moment I became confident that we would be a good team.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's also something that when starting a business, you shouldn't take lightly. The person you're starting the business with, it's not enough to have similar interests. It's not enough to have compatible ways of working, even though that's very important. I think the core thing, the key thing is to be aligned on values, on goals, on the direction, and then do the work continuously to evaluate that. And I think we've been doing often by meeting and discussing these things. But I've also heard horror stories from some founders when they didn't have this alignment and that they figured out just after a few years of working together that they were completely misaligned on some of the core things. So yeah, that's a good point. And let's talk a little bit now, moving forward like 1 year-ish to the moment where you realizing that you would also be going full-time and quitting Amazon. What was the hardest part for you in this process of going full-time and leaving your 9 to 5?
It was a tough period. The fun part, what I'm sharing with my friends, is that when you work in Amazon, it's very easy to share what you do. Everybody is impressed. You are having a stable source of income, a good one as well. And in my family, a year ago, we became a family of 4. This was also the main income that we had in our family. So it was a tricky period. It was quite challenging. I had to think a lot about it. And for the people that joined our events, I think they heard me analyzing and thinking about it for quite a long time. It became clear to me that I want to do this, I think around quite some time ago, but then I need to plan. The first part was discussing it with my life partner, aligning with her, and defining what needs to happen in order for me to be able to dedicate my time to Product Week 100%. We did many calculations financial-wise. We had to figure out how we'll take care of the kids, so also time management-wise. And yeah, at the end of the day, all the planning and discussions and stuff, they all aligned. And I was finally able to do what my heart was saying. Because I knew I want this, but I was also able to make it happen. And the last, and I think maybe also a crucial piece here, was you being super open and reassuring me that everything is going to be fine, understanding the challenges of parenthood as well. And now, also time-wise, it's not like I'm working less than I was in my corporate job. Many people have this maybe misconception that you quit a corporate job, you have your business, maybe you work less. Not at all. I'm working really random hours. Sometimes I'm working a lot during the night when kids are finally asleep. I'm working when they are in school. I'm working outside. I'm having brainstorming sessions with ChatGPT, or I'm asking ChatGPT to transcribe and write down things so that I have them ready when I'm back to my laptop. So it's doable, but it's not easier or less work. And I'm very happy that I took this step.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's something I identify with, even though our transition moments were quite different. I think you had to have a much more calculated approach because you had to make sure that you'd be able to still provide for the family, and you could not just randomly quit and hope for the best, a bit like I did. To be honest, when I did it, my journey was more that I realized that I had to make a decision on either growing Product Weekend or quitting the job. I wasn't being able to do both at the same time. So if I kept the job, I would have to slow down Product Weekend. Then my thinking was, what's the worst that can happen if I quit and things go south? And that would be like, I would need to find another job, and that's not the end of the world. Yeah, in my case, I didn't have that financial pressure, which helped make the jump without having to think too much. But yeah, I think it's also that you mentioned that you've seen that I had done it and that I was managing to at least pay the bills and that it was generating enough to cover costs. I think that also gave confidence that we could make it happen and do that jump. And what's the maybe one thing about running a business or running this business that you didn't expect?
It's something that I reflected on recently. If you feel lonely, then you're not doing it right. Let me explain a bit. The way I grew up, I always saw business as something that you give 200% of yourself. You work day and night, you work hard, you hustle, and then you achieve results. And I envision this as something quite lonely. Maybe you work with your team, with your partner, but still, it's just you against the world. Maybe also being a developer, software developer in the past, I had that vision. It's you with your MacBook against the world. But then I realized if you do that, then you're not doing things right, because I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's much harder to achieve things on your own. First of all, you need to talk to your customers, understand them continuously, but then it's also about partnerships, working with the right people. It's a lot about networking, right? And I think you're exposed to much less opportunities if you don't talk to people, and those might be critical for your business. And I realized it when I was still working in Amazon. There were weeks when I didn't have many calls related to Product Weekend, calls with different people, and it felt a bit lonely. And then when I moved full time, that changed very fast. Now I'm having many calls every week with different people on different topics, and it doesn't feel lonely. I feel like I'm finally understood. I'm having my people, my tribe around, and it also quantifies in results, I think. It has a good impact. Yeah, I think that's one thing I didn't expect. It's not a lonely road. You should be in touch with many people, and that's also a good metric, I think, that you're on a good path.
Cool. Interesting.
What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, first of all, I think that's a very interesting take. For me, I always felt that need of connecting and meeting with people, and even when I was working full time, I was making sure that I was having these regular calls, talking with mentors, talking with different people that I identified with, and I made sure that I made the time for that to happen. But yeah, obviously being full time, it makes it much more present and much more a reality of your everyday. Even though then you need to be careful not to distract yourself too much and just get lost in call after call discussing over not getting things done. So warning there. But yeah, I think for me the thing that I didn't expect was that, like, I always had the belief that if you do good things, if you deliver value, money will come. And I was never worried about making money when I started, but I realized that if you don't think about making money also, money will not come, or will come much slower than you need or than you want. So that was something that I had to make peace with, that it's not only about delivering value and doing things, you also need to figure out ways to monetize, to capitalize on what you're building. And yeah, and this actually connects to something that I just remembered when you mentioned something before, that our backgrounds and our growing up, it's also very interesting that we have different backgrounds and different or deep deeply rooted perceptions and understanding of money and businesses. And I think we complement well in that regard. And yeah, for people that are listening and are probably not understanding what I mean, that for you, you had more this vision of business and creating companies as an adversarial thing that you need to fight against the world and people may be taking advantage of you and you need to thrive and fight for your survival. I had a bit more, and this came up from seeing your mother building a restaurant and having that kind of business. And then on my side, I had my father and my grandparents that were building businesses, but not for profit. They were just basically to pay the bills. And yeah, I had more that perception of businesses as something that create value for the world and for the community, and that are not necessarily a fight. It's more about collaboration. But I think it needs to have a little bit of both. I don't think there's one right or wrong way, and I think that's something I appreciate about our partnership and our working together, that maybe in some situations where I'm getting, I don't know, too soft and not thinking about money and letting myself being taken advantage of, you can remind me that, look, we need to still fight for our survival and for what we deserve. And on the other hand, when maybe you would fall into fight mode and hustle mode and we need to make money, I can roll back and remind, okay, we're here to create value. So I think that balance is very important, and I think having a bit of those different backgrounds makes us stronger together. I really appreciate that.
It surely does. I already have some examples in mind when this happened. It's working good.
Do you want to share any of them with the audience?
I have one in mind. When we thought about launching the Career Accelerator, it's an event that we organized once. It was in Lisbon last autumn. It was a new concept. We wanted to help people land a new role in product or break into product. And it was the question, okay, we have the format, we have the value proposition and everything. What should be the price? And that was a big discussion, right? Should we price it lower? Because most participants would be people in between jobs or people that are considering quitting their job. Or on contrary, since we help them land a new job, we should maybe price it higher. So I remember we had some discussions there, and I think we managed to balance each other. And I think that went well. But there were some fun discussions there.
Yeah, so then the conclusion was keep the price as is. Not lower, not more expensive.
In the middle.
But yeah, that's a good example. And I think also on that, and also it may be interesting for some people listening on why we decided not to continue that, is that we saw the impact it has, but the effort it requires to do and the extra, like the distraction it would create compared to the other events, like it's a very different value proposition, different target, different communication, and different organization also. It would basically be a whole new business if we pursued that. And yeah, we also discussed about that for quite a while, and we had to decide to prioritize as we're not able to do everything. We're still keeping it in the shelf, let's say, for the day when we have the capacity, the availability. We may be able to do that again, to run that program again. But yeah, we had to make a decision for business sake and to be able to continue to deliver the other things that we're doing. We had to prioritize, and sometimes it can get emotional, the prioritization process, because you need to let go of things that you care about and that you believe in detriment of, in order to have the space and the bandwidth to create the other things that maybe deliver more value or create more value for the company. So also you need to balance that out.
Just a quick break. If you're enjoying the episode, don't forget to hit follow and leave a rating. Your support keeps us going and helps us share even more insights with listeners like you. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
But yeah, and if someone listening is considering taking this leap and creating something of their own, what would be your best piece of advice? What's the maybe the mindset shift also that you had to do to make it work?
I would say it's important to have a clear why. know exactly why you're doing it. Have a strong motivation because it's not going to be easy. Also, be ready to have some failures on the way. That's normal. That's how you learn. It's okay. But if you don't have a clear why, then you might get lost at some point, or you might even take the wrong decision. It sounds cool starting a business. You might think that you make more money. You might make more money, but you might also work more. The dollars per hour might not be much different than where you are now. And when you have a clear why, you're more resilient. And I think you're also able to gather the right people around you that empathize or feel the same. That's the first one. And the second one, I think it's important to have a metric to measure success. Know exactly what success looks like. For me, and where this comes from, I had different side hustles next to my full-time job. And the question was, okay, people were asking me, when are you going to quit? Or would you ever quit? And I had a clear profit per month number in mind that when I reach that, then I am going to be able to quit. Doesn't mean that I will, but from that moment on, I can do that. I can consider that. And having that metric helped me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. I'd say like also one thing that's important for me personally was not rushing into it, not, and it connects a bit to what you said of having a clear why, not just have, I want to build something, so I'll just quit and do whatever. Like, this is a very personal thing, to be honest. I wouldn't say it's a one size fits all kind of advice. But for me personally, it was important to have something that already showed results before jumping. So it was already making money. It was not like a huge amount, but it proved the assumption. So having those assumptions identified and clarified and verified before making that jump, I think it's an important one for me. But yeah, obviously for other people, if you're like in a job that doesn't give you any time to think of anything outside of work, if you're just swamped and you can't have the bandwidth or the mind space to think of anything and do anything else, maybe in that situation, the other advice would be more suitable of just quit, find the time, find the space, and then figure out something. But I would say to start with a clear problem and a clear thing that you're solving for. And then the other piece is leveraging the tools that exist. Like these days, there's just so many things like with AI, no code, so many tools that allow you to build things faster and also to distribute your product faster. So make sure to learn those and to leverage them. And actually, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that on this trend. So I would say mostly AI, no code, and distributed teams, at least for me, are the most impactful things. There's so much shifting in how we build products today. What's something that excites you about creating products, companies in 2025?
I would say it's the speed to testing. With all these tools, you don't need strong skills, tech skills to validate an idea. You need a lot of creativity, you need some logic as well to use the no-code tools, but you don't need a degree in computer science. So this is exciting. I have so many ideas. I have one that I wanted to discuss with you after this podcast recording. And I feel like if you have an idea, you can test it right away. You don't need to get a contractor, a freelancer to code stuff for you. You can try things out. If you don't know how to test an idea, you can have a chat with ChatGPT and get some creative ideas from there. There is also a downside maybe. With all these no-code tools and AI, it's tricky to know which one to use. I'm getting so many ads on Instagram or other platforms with tools that will just fully change your life, and I don't have the time to test them all. So it helped me a lot having you next to me, sharing tools and sharing your learnings. And then I also started learning a bit by myself. But I would say having a group of people you can chat with, if you have a chat with 3-4 friends, where you talk about these kind of tools and how they could help you, that's a great win. That's a great step. Trying to filter the tools and know what to use when.
Yeah, that's a super good point. I think there's also a lot of AI course, AI MBA, and so on. But what my thinking about these courses is that they get outdated so fast. In 2 weeks, there's 10 new tools that you can use, or 10 new features that you can use even in the same tools. So that part that you mentioned of having this peer group of people that you're chatting with, that you're experimenting things, I think it can be really powerful. And it's actually something that we're thinking how we can make it happen for more people. Like for us, we have this, like mostly the two of us, but also some people that we're close with and that we keep chatting and sharing these tips with them and getting their feedback also. But having that group and that network is really, really powerful. But yeah, I'd say one thing that's a bit on the negative side of it. I always said that ideas are cheap. I don't value ideas that much. Like, you can have the idea. What's tricky is the execution. That's what I always used to say. The thing is now with AI and no code and all these tools, execution is also becoming cheap. So before there was like lots of ideas. What was difficult was to execute and create something with value. Now you can create things with value. And I think what's challenging is delivering them to the market. And I think that's something that people sometimes overlook. And as more and more tools are being built every day, I think it becomes even more important to figure out the way to deliver them and to make them reach the real audience. So it also connects to that, finding that product market fit and finding the way to grow, to scale the product. And this can be with, like, I believe that product-led growth is probably the best way to do this, to have the product sell itself and bring people in. And there's like different ways to do it. Actually, like one of the past podcast episodes with Ben Williams and the one with Léa Terrin also are very interesting in this topic. But yeah, it's something that's sometimes overlooked, that distribution piece. And I wanted to ask you on this. I mean, I already shared a bit on the challenges. What would be for you maybe the biggest challenge in building products today?
Coming from a background in computer science, I feel like I never had an issue with building a cool product. The building itself was not the problem. Now with all the tools that you mentioned before, it's even easier.
Mm-hmm.
Product market fit is the hardest part. And I think the biggest challenge is resisting the temptation of investing a lot of time and or money into an idea, into a product before having product market fit. I think that's a big challenge, and that is underestimated a lot. You don't need to invest months of work and a lot of money in something that you haven't validated yet. And it's also challenging to know when you reach product market fit. If you start making some money, it doesn't mean that you reach product market fit. So yeah, I would go with that as the main challenge.
Yeah. Interesting that you talk about product market fit. It got me thinking about and how we think about product market fit. I feel like from the very first edition, there was some product market fit. Like, people kept coming back and asking for more, and I think that's one of the clearest signs of product market fit. What's your take on that? How do you think about product market fit for Product Weekend in specific?
It's a good question. I think in Portugal, there was a clear product market fit. As you said, people were coming back. Then last year, we started going to more locations, right? We were in 7 countries last year. And I'm not sure if we hit product market fit everywhere. There is a big difference in needs in different countries and cities. In some, there are already solutions to the same problems we're tackling in the form of meetups or online communities, conferences. And there we didn't really have a strong differentiator, or there are already free solutions that are good enough. So I would say the first thing, product market fit in one location doesn't mean it actually works everywhere. The geographical differences can be crazy sometimes. So you need to keep adapting, need to understand what's different here, how things work, and adapt. And then the second piece is also how you communicate the value. You should change the way you communicate it as well, according to the location. And for me, what I consider a good product market fit in the case of Product Weekend is the conversion. We are reaching quite many people, but how many are actually deciding to join our events? Then how many decide to return? Yes, that's important. And this is related to the value that we deliver, to the impact these events have on their careers. That's how I measure it.
A few things are coming to my mind, in particular, like the way that we are doing it in the weekend and having it as a full day thing. Actually, the first edition was 3 days. Some people don't know that. And we've been iterating to fit the needs and the feedback that we've been getting. But while that's been working really well in Portugal and in a few other countries, we've heard feedback that it would never work in some other countries and that maybe we need to do it during the week. And yeah, and then there's like the way that you communicate, being general versus being very specific about the topics that we're tackling. That's also something that's maybe different across cultures. And yeah, things that we are figuring out. Like for people listening, if there's like specific feedback that you want to share about these different geographical approaches, things that you feel like we should pay attention to, especially when going to these new locations, we'd really appreciate it if you share it with us. That would be really helpful. And talking about, since we're now talking about Product Weekend, besides the events, the in-person events that right now, as some of you may know, we have 3 types of events: the Circle, the Fest, and the Leaders Retreat. But we're also exploring with a few different things. Some of them that we've already launched, that we're testing, but that we're also cautious not to jump into too many things at once. From all these things that we're working on, the mentorship, potential membership, the card game, the psychological safety workshops, what's this AI thing, what excites you the most about this new, let's say, phase of Product Weekend?
What I think about the most these days, what keeps me awake at night, to put it this way, is building a steady recurring income stream. I feel like there are periods throughout the year when we are too stressed with sales, with selling an event, and a lot of operational stuff that we lose sight or we are not able to dedicate enough time to providing value to our community. All this stress damages, and it's also in the nature of what we do. If you organize events, right, you announce the events, then you focus on selling it. And the more events you organize, the more time and effort you need to invest into selling tickets. And that's okay until a certain point. We also reach the scalability part here. How many events can we organize per year? Do we need to increase our team? And so on. So I feel like if we would be able to have a recurring income stream, then we would be able to generate more value to our community in different forms. That's one thing that strategically I think we should think how to tackle and dedicate time to it, focus on it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think that's a bit like getting that mind space and operational, let's say, to do more. It's super important to be able to deliver more value, and we will only be able to do that when we have this steady income stream where we can be confident that it will be working even when we are not having events, because always there's like few periods in the year where events are not happening. And yeah, that's interesting. I'm particularly excited about the 2 main things, actually. One of them, 3. I'm excited about everything. That's the tricky part here. But well, to be concise on what I'm most excited about, one of them is this event managers arrangement that we have, where it's such a franchise model that we've just signed the first contracts for actually Berlin and Dubai, and we are closing a few others for a few more cities with these amazing people that have been to our events, that know what we stand for, and that are interested in bringing this experience to their local communities in different places. And I think this is a very powerful way that we'll have to scale Product Weekend beyond our weekends and our personal time from the two of us. And I'm very confident it will work based on the experiments we've run this past year, especially on the people. And because when we talk about franchises or these kind of businesses, like, it's all about the people, like getting the right people on board. It's the main key to success, and I'm really happy and really confident in the people that we're getting for this. So yeah, really excited to see that running. And then the other one, and I'm cutting off some other things that I'm really excited about, but the other one is this idea of a membership program that's finally shaping up. That until we've been thinking about it for quite some time. We've tried even with credits in our platform. We've tried with a members page on our website, but we haven't nailed it just yet. But right now I feel like pieces are finally coming together with these experiments that we've run with a mentorship program, with the online webinars, with all these initiatives that we're running. I feel like we're finally getting things in place to actually make it work and to be able to deliver that continuous value to our members and to our participants on a regular basis instead of just specific moments when events happen. So yeah, really excited about those two. I mean, it definitely connects to what you said of building this recurring revenue. I think both of these initiatives are pretty much in line. So good to know that we're aligned on that front.
Yes, yes, we are.
So we are almost wrapping up. But before that, I actually wanted to hear and to learn a little bit more about how you see parenthood and ambition, how to balance the two, how to deal with these challenges of grown-up life that I'm trying to avoid at all costs, and you jumped into it faster. But yeah, what's been the biggest challenge in that balancing and your ambition?
Yeah, that's a question that I ask myself, and I openly talk about it with my wife, I think. If not on a weekly basis, then surely monthly. We are both ambitious. We both value our careers. We didn't want to give up on our career when kids came to our life. And they are our why. We are doing everything for them, and we want to include them in everything. So the most challenging part was, time. I don't have that huge amount of time anymore, working nonstop day and night to what I want. I need to have a great time management. I need to synchronize perfectly with my wife, who takes care of the kids, who can go on a work trip. There are literally moments when she's going on a work trip and I stay with kids, and the moment she comes back, I literally run to the airport for my work trip. And that's okay. Family is very important for us. We're having good quality time with our kids, but still, I think managed quite well to dedicate time to our careers. Time is the biggest challenge, and I think that the communication with your partner. As long as you have a good communication with your partner, I think you can go far. One trick, a quick one that I would like to share, is that me and my wife, we are saying a number. It's like 0 to 100, a percentage of how much energy we have to give to house chores and staying with kids. Sometimes we are sharing, look, I'm 10%. I cannot handle this. And if my partner is at 50% or higher, then she could take care of things. That's our way of communicating how much we can give, our energy level and everything. The goal is trying to that together to be at 100% all the time. If both of us together, if we're below 100%, then there is something that we need to change, something that we need to remove to get more time to rest more. And that seems to be working quite well.
Interesting. That's a cool, actionable one. Never thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Let's start wrapping up so that we don't go too much over time. If we could go back to 2022 and give our younger selves, a piece of advice for this journey, what would it be?
My piece of advice would be You don't need to excel in everything. It's impossible to be perfect in everything, especially when you do many things in parallel. So define your priorities, choose 1, 2 things you want to excel in, then some in which you should be just good enough, and some that should be dropped. You don't need to do everything, just throw away the least relevant things in your life. And communicate these priorities with your wife. Sergio, please communicate properly.
Yeah. Sergio, make sure to listen and don't fuck it up. Yeah. I think you didn't fuck it up, so you did a good job still, even without the advice. Yeah. For me, I would say that like to think about making money earlier in the journey, like figuring out the way to make money, because I was not worried about that for maybe too long. Yeah, I think maybe that would have made things grow faster potentially. Yeah. Cool. So, last question. What's a small but meaningful moment from this journey that stands out to you the most?
There are many moments, to be honest. For me, it's the end of the retreat, the leaders retreat that we organized in 2023 in partnership with Productized. It's having an ice cream with you and Andre Marquet in Lisbon. That was a really nice moment when we analyzed what happened, the partnership, and I really got a great feeling that we did something meaningful, that Product Weekend delivers value, and that we're on the right path.
Awesome. Nice. That's a very specific moment, but yeah, I also remember that moment. It was a really cool one. Awesome. All right, Sergio, this was a special one. Thank you so much for joining on this special episode. And for everyone that's been following this podcast, a huge thank you. This journey, it's the 30th episode, and we have 30 amazing episodes with incredible guests, some of the best names in product management. And I'm really proud of what we did here. Since we started the podcast, Product Weekend has changed a lot, has evolved a lot, and I can't wait for what's next and to have you all joining us in person in our events, online in our new initiatives, in this next stage also for the podcast. So if you've enjoyed this season, if you've enjoyed the podcast, and if you want to stay connected with us, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to also leave a rating, as it will help us reach some new people. We are looking forward to seeing you grow in your careers. So thank you so much. Thank you, Sergio. Yeah, I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast season.
Thanks for tuning in to the Product Weekend podcast. We hope today's episode sparked some new ideas and inspired you on your journey. If you found it valuable, be sure to follow us and share the podcast with others who might benefit. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with us on LinkedIn or send us an email at team@theproductweekend.com. Until next time, keep learning, leading, and making an impact. See you in the next episode.